All right, we've got another thing to add to the list of problems gone wrong. But first, just to show you guys where we're at, so we went ahead and got the turbos off the car. I went ahead and removed everything else under here that needs to be removed. And so we've actually made it to the part of starting to actually do the install. And so we've gotten past removing everything. And so now we are actually starting the real part of the build process. What I've done so far is I went ahead and have the oil and coolant blocks in here. So this right here plugs up the oil port for the rear turbo. Since we only have one turbo now, we don't need it. There's another one far up here in the far left that blocks off. We've got one up here in the far right that blocks it off. We have our coolant line here hooked up, and then we have our oil port here. And so this will have an oil line attached to it that feeds oil to the turbo. And so we've got all that set up. I haven't put the line on yet just since it gets in the way a little bit. So we've got everything taken care of that we need to on the block, with the exception of the exhaust manifold studs. And so the exhaust manifold studs are supposed to be replaced during this process. To do that, I am in the process of pulling out all of the old manifold bolts and putting the new ones in, but I have ran into a problem with two of them. So right here is what the manifold bolt looks like. So as you can see, it's a female T8 that we have to put on the end of these to go ahead and get these to screw on out of the block. But the issue that I ran into with two of them is I just completely snapped off this end piece of it that you hook your T8 onto. And so all I'm left with is the threaded portion of the studs. To go ahead and show you guys, we have got this manifold stud still in, and then there is another one on the back upper side. And the part that you can actually get your wrench and T8 onto is just completely broken off. And so we're gonna have to use a little bit of a technique here to see if we can get this thing out of the block. I've already blasted it with WD-40 a couple times. And so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna screw two nuts onto it and see if I can tighten those nuts so much that I can then get it out by loosening the inner nut. So we're gonna go ahead and see if we can fix this problem here, but this is just another thing to add to the list of broken bolts and other things that I've broken in the process of this DIY. All right, I was able to get off both of the broken exhaust manifold studs by using the double bolt technique. So just a quick rundown, if you guys ever run into this issue, I actually had to do it here on the exhaust manifold as well, because these bolts right here are double threaded bolts, and it doesn't poke all the way through the back end to be able to put a nut on the back of it. And so getting these tight enough in here was challenging. And so I used the same process to tighten these ones in here as I did to get these exhaust manifold bolts out. And it's called, I don't know, the double bolt technique, I guess. But essentially what you do is you take two bolts and screw both of them onto the stud. And then what you want to do is take a wrench and a socket here, and basically you want to tighten them towards each other. So I'm essentially going to try to loosen this inner bolt. So I'm trying to move it backwards while I'm going to tighten my outer bolt here. And so when I do that, what I'm doing is tightening these two bolts really tight together. So now if I want to tighten the manifold bolt here, I'm going to go ahead and use the outside one, and I'm going to twist that to tighten it, and it'll move the whole thread there. And now if I want to loosen it, I'm going to go ahead and use the inside one and loosen it, and you'll see that the top bolt is not coming off of the stud, and the stud itself is actually coming out of the manifold here, which is probably tough to see, but just a quick show that this is the way the double bolt technique works. If you ever run into a situation like I did, where you bust off the tip of one of these exhaust manifold studs and have to get it out of the block, but don't have anything to grab onto. All right, so now that I got those out, I went ahead and got all 16 of the exhaust manifold studs back in. I think I actually only put 14 in because 2 of them aren't necessary. Now it's time to get the manifold itself bolted onto the block in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount this up, and then once I get this mounted up, we have our VS Racing open dump wastegate right here. This wastegate's gonna go ahead and mount up to the backside of the manifold here. And then we have our dump pipe right here, which is gonna go ahead and mount up. I have to put this together. It comes with a couple springs and a lot of other different pieces. I'm gonna go ahead and get the manifold onto the block first, and then we're gonna figure out how to get this onto the manifold, and then we'll attach the open dump to it. The one thing I haven't done is get all of the old gaskets. Once I pulled the turbos off, a lot of the old exhaust manifold gaskets got stuck in the block up here. So I'm gonna use a pick tool to pick those out, and then I'm gonna go ahead and throw the manifold up here. All right, guys, I got on a bit of a roll yesterday and forgot to take any videos of what we've been working on here. But as you can see, we are starting to put everything back together. So we have the water pump and the thermostat put back together. We've got the wastegate set up right here as well. And then we've got the open dump pipe right here coming off of it. We've got the coolant pipe back in right up here. And I went ahead and started with the process of rerouting the coolant reservoir. So I haven't fully finished that up yet, but when we look on the top side of the engine, we've got the reservoir in place. I just need to go ahead and get all the lines run, which I haven't done yet since the subframe is still dropped. But what we're about to do right now is go ahead and get the stock motor mount back on there. And then we're gonna go ahead and bolt the subframe back up to it. The subframe should be all back together here shortly, and then we're gonna get going on everything that we need to on the top side of the engine. All right, so I just bolted the subframe back up. I left all of the suspension still detached for the time being, just in case I need to go back and drop the subframe again for anything else. I did mock up the downpipe and the dump pipe down there, and it seems like it's going to be pretty difficult to get those to fit into the small space here, but the instructions say to put the subframe back together, so I put it back together for the sake of progress, and we're going to go from there. So you can also see we've got the wastegate here, the dump pipe comes off the other end of it. We've got our oil lines, coolant feed lines here. I'm going to go through and wrap these in some heat sheath. Some things that I need to do with all the wiring over here. I'm gonna go ahead and take this wiring and reroute it to underneath the injectors back here. And then a few other things. So like I mentioned, I got the coolant expansion tank. It's mounted up over here, but I still just kind of have this loosely sitting down here since obviously I don't have the cooling fan or the intercooler in yet. And so giving myself a little bit of room to play with for when I put those back in. Got the intake manifold on. It's not bolted on right now. I just went ahead and mocked it up to get it in place because it looked like it was going to be pretty difficult to get this thing on after I moved the power steering fluid here right next to the alternator. And so got that sitting on there okay for now. So that'll have to get bolted up. I still need to connect the fuel line over here to get that fully set up. And I still haven't touched anything really with respect to the fuel pump. I still have the fuel pump sitting over here next to me right now. So I still need to build that, but wanted to go ahead and continue to move forward and make some more progress on cleaning everything up over here, kind of getting the turbo set up and getting the turbo mocked up. That's what we're gonna do for now. All right, it's been quite a while since I've gotten an update video done. I've been gone a lot and I just haven't quite made as much progress as I'd wanted to. I'm sorry I wasn't too great at filming all the things that I was doing, but just wanted to go ahead and give you guys a check-in on where we're at here on the build process. So last video I took, I was working on mocking up the turbocharger. As it sits today, we've got the turbocharger in here, the downpipes hooked up. We have the full exhaust system set up. Everything on the bottom side of this exhaust-wise is all set up and fully bolted up. The dump pipe that's down there off of the wastegate is all set up and bolted to the downpipe as well. I did have the turbocharger housing actually set up in here and hooked up to the intercooler, which I did get my VRSF 7.5-inch intercooler installed. And so you can see that right here. We've got the piping run over here for the intercooler. We just need to get the charge pipe mounted up to it. And like I said, I did have the turbocharger attached to the intercooler over here on this side, but because of this oil feed line down here, I wasn't able to actually fully get the turbo housing fully bolted up to the compressor wheel here. And so I'm gonna have to go ahead and drop down the intercooler to get that to mount up properly and to get it to fully bolt in. But anyways, the turbocharger is pretty much fully set up. We just need to go ahead and get it hooked up to the intercooler here. And then a few other things that I did, I went ahead and got all of the wiring over here rerouted to underneath my fuel lines. I went ahead and put some heat wrap around all of my lines around here. I also have some heat wrap around the oil line to the turbocharger. And then a couple other things. We have the coolant expansion tank relocation fully set up, and so that's good to go. Had a couple hoses that were bad that I had to replace. Additionally, I went ahead and replaced my serpentine belt on here. So basically where I'm at now is I'm just going to fully attach the intake manifold here. I've got to get the charge pipe hooked up to it. And then the one last thing is installing my 3-port MAC valve that I have right here for my boost setup. So this is really the last thing that I need to get installed. And then from there, it's really just putting everything back together. Additionally, I got the fuel pump set up in the tank. All the wiring is run for it. This is the line here that connects to my Hobbs switch on the charge pipe. So once I get the charge pipe back in, this will be fully set up. But I got this routed through the firewall, and then it goes all the way along the side of the car, around the back seat to where it's hooked up to the fuel pump. And then we've got all the wiring hooked up to the battery inside the trunk. And so fueling wise, we are all set up and good to go there. So really all it is getting the turbo housing set up, installing my MAC valve, and then I'm putting everything back together. And I have a few things with respect to wiring that need to get done. I need to get my port injection controller wired into my JB4. I've got just a little bit of wiring to do with the actual port injection injectors. But for the most part, we are so close to getting there. It's really just putting everything back together at this point. I was hoping to maybe get it running this weekend, but I did forget about one thing, and that is my PCV setup. And so I need to go ahead and get a proper PCV setup since I didn't buy anything for that. And so that is going to be the one delay. But I'm going to get everything put back together, and then I'm going to go ahead and purchase a PCV kind of catch can setup. And the next video should be everything done and us giving this a first startup. So hopefully that video will be coming in a couple weeks. But anyways, yeah, that's what we've got for now. So I'm going to get to work here and hopefully have another video for you guys shortly.